All right, the last type of pressure measurement device I'll talk about is something called a pressure transducer. So these are like the Rolls Royce of pressure measurement devices. So when you buy them, they basically look like, I don't know, maybe like a little tube that screws into a port, and they've got usually a couple of cords coming out the other end. What's on the inside of these pressure transducers is actually extremely fancy, and it's actually like a miracle of modern science that we're able to deliver these things as cheaply as we are. So these are actually micro electromechanical devices made from silicon wafers. So they're basically made using the same processes that make your computer chips for everything. So the way these things work is amazing. So what they do is they take a silicon wafer and they thin it down in some regions. So there's a thin membrane made out of silicon that basically forms, like something like like a soft region in the wafer. And then if there's a pressure difference across the wafer, so like, for example, if you expose one side to high pressure and the other side is at atmospheric pressure, then what'll happen is that membrane will bow downwards and deflect. So the name of the game is like trying to detect that deflection. So what they do is they build in, it's sort of like a strain gauge. What they do is they build in resistors into the silicon using doping techniques to create resistors that are in the areas that have the most strain. And so it turns out that the resistivity of silicon depends slightly on the strain. And so when these things move, the resistivity of those resistors changes, and they can detect that by measuring a voltage change in a Wheatstone bridge circuit. So it's actually all the same things that you've learned in maybe your first electronics class, but at a really microscopic scale and miniaturized and mass-produced in a way that makes them cheap-ish. I mean, these generally still run several $100s before you're done getting the entire system, but I guess the price is coming down all the time. Anyway, so pressure transducers are extremely accurate, or at least precise. They are extremely precise because basically you're measuring a voltage, and it's a voltage that changes in a continuum. And obviously, like, we can measure voltages to very large number of significant digits, and so these pressure transducers are extremely precise. They're not necessarily accurate because you still have to calibrate these devices in order to make them work, but they can detect extremely small changes in pressures. And so they're really used for cases where you really want a lot of precision.